Hello and welcome back to Corvinus Business Intelligence. As you know, a podcast of Corvinus University in Budapest. My name's Theodore Boone. I'm on the faculty of Corvinus University and I am the host for today's podcast. And we are absolutely delighted to have two leaders in the field of digital transformation with us today, two partners and advisory co-leaders at KPMG. We have Ágnes Rakó and we have Tamás Kórász here with us today to discuss what I understand many to believe the mission-critical subject of digital transformation. And Ágnes, may I start with you? One of these easy questions that probably is a difficult answer, at least to say fairly briefly, but I will ask it anyway. What is digital transformation?
It's a great question. It's how you define it, but if you ask us, at KPMG, then we would rather say it's a kind of strategic journey where with the help of digital tools, you transform the whole operation of an entity over a long period of time. And it's a continuous journey. So it's not just a project for 1 or 2 years. It's a continuous journey to achieve that kind of those kind of strategic goals and the vision that the entities have ahead of them.
And Tamás, a company looking to embark on this strategic journey of digital transformation, how does it start the process? Well, step number one is presumably to call you guys, right? But the step number two is what?
It's very important that digital transformation is really a journey, as Ági mentioned, and it is a journey not from just technology point of view, but on mindset point of view, and as well as some process point of view and strategic point of view. So first of all, we have to establish such a digital journey on that way that we have to find out what is the game changer of the digitalization, how the company would like to reach it. And first we have to discuss about the strategical background, then the business mindset change and how the business driver will change, and then we can do the technical steps to make the process more digitalized and less paper and less manual work. So it's a really an interesting journey.
So let's say there's a company out there that's doing pretty well, a fairly large company. Let's say a trucking company. You know, of course, they're a little bit digital. They email each other and things like that. But the leadership feels that, number one, it's not taking advantage of all the possibilities, for example, in the information that it has and is obtaining. It's just sort of sitting there and they're thinking, gee, we should do something with all this information that's coming at us. And second, they recognize that they're in a situation that if they don't transform to a truly digital company, they risk, the ultimate penalty, which is no longer being around in a few years. So the management calls you up and says, come in for initial meeting. What are some of the initial questions you have for them? Ágnes, perhaps you could start.
I'm happy to start. Yes, I think the initial question, and I'm referring back to Tamás, is why. So the most important question is just to understand why we do that. Is it because we feel that we are lagging behind our competitors, or whether we understand really where we would like to get? That's the biggest question, because it depending on this answer, we should clearly identify the tools that we use in our journey. So I think, and that's the kind of question that we sometimes miss when we start discussing this topic with the clients. Is just the initial question is why? What we would like to achieve? Why we would like to transform? Why do we need those kind of information? What we would like to use those for? It's a journey, but it's not a 2-year-long project. It's a kind of lifetime journey. So it also requires that kind of mindset change. And the question here is always whether are you or are we ready for that? Because it's not just a transformation of certain digital tools or implementing new tools, but it's also change in all of our procedures, how we hire people, how we perform our processes, how we go to the market with our products. So it changes everything if we would like to do it right.
Tamás, if you guys ask why, and I understand what you're saying, but the senior management sort of says, well, I don't know, but it seems like we should do this. Why do you think we should do it? What would you say?
I have two highlights in this case. The one is the customer. So what I prefer absolutely that we consider who are our customer and what is their expectation and how we can care for our client, how we can sell services for the client. Right now, the digitalization means it a multi-channel strategy. We have a different way how we can handle with the client. So I have a client-focused journey map, what I discussed with the management. And the other favorite area is the data. Right now, it's very important that this digital journey is not just to change the mindset, the processes, but the change of how we use the data, what kind of data we are gathering, how we analyze them, and how we use this data in our decision-making process. So usually I take these two stories and then the management start to thinking with us, and it's I think a great approach to start on this journey.
And would you all recommend, for example, in terms of the data, if there were, you saw opportunities to actually collect more data than wasn't being collected? I mean, for example, in a manufacturer, the placement of more sensors, for example, more Internet of Things type approach. Would that be something you might recommend?
That might be, depending on the purpose, I think, and that's why it is very important, because collecting data, it requires effort. It requires spaces where you collect this data and store this data in a proper format. So it requires a proper planning. So first of all, we should understand why we need those data, what we would like to use those data for, and if we have that kind of the answer for that kind of questions, then we can identify the data that we need, and then we can start the whole process. So back to this is, I think what is important here, and also in what Tamás mentioned, is that the planning phase, the preparation, is the most important part. Because if we miss that, or if we would like to be too quick, then we might go in the wrong direction.
And Tamás, what about the question of you have the commitment of the senior leadership, but the people maybe one or two tiers below that are perhaps not as excited about this. And let's be honest, one of the reasons they might not be excited about it is because they worry that they're going to lose their job as a result of this transformation. So there is a conscious or unconscious resistance to this type of transformation. How do you recommend companies deal with that possibility?
So in this journey, there is a very important part is the change management. The change management, what I mentioned, the mindset in the people. But nowadays it is a big challenge about AI, for example, because a lot of people are afraid that here's the AI, and based on a KPMG prediction till 2030 about our 40% of our daily life will be replaced by AI, what is a huge amount in an average office workers. But there will be new job parts, new challenges, new tasks. So I usually say to these people that don't worry about the changes, because you will have a more accurate and more exciting work for you. And in addition to your market value will be higher if you can learn SAP or AI or this kind of technology. So they should be better on the marketplace if they are participating such a project, and sometimes it's very useful to them, and they push ahead the project very well.
And that sounds good when you're successful in convincing somebody like that. But I could picture a person that says, I'm just not going to be able to learn all this new stuff, right? I have a job that is great, it's useful, I'm contributing, but to be honest, it's kind of a little bit mechanical, right? So a system, I guess called robotics process automation is one example, comes in, and that person says, well, the company as a whole may grow, new and different opportunities may occur at the company, but for me personally, I'm not so sure, right? So how do you recommend management deal with that scenario?
I really like this question, because a few years back, maybe 6 or 7 years ago when we started doing certain RPA process reviews and introducing robots for certain companies. One of my favorite examples was with RPA a few years back with a Hungarian insurance company where the management really struggled with, finding that kind of opportunity to let the organization understand how beneficial this solution or this technology for them would be. And what we found is that we actually identified a lady in one of the finance team who really had a kind of robotic type of work, and she became the champion because over the work that we had, 4 or 5 weeks with them, she really understood the advantages of this technology, and she became the champion, the internal champion. And with the help of that, real life example of a person whose work definitely was affected by the implementation of this tool, they could really sell it within the organization, not just so in this case, the bottom-up approach.
Right. You have internal allies at
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn to the subject of cybersecurity, which I know covers a lot and deep things, but I have to say personally, I'm not sure I have any passwords left. I kind of run out of passwords to think about, but I know cybersecurity is much more than just that. Tamás, could you talk a little bit about what you're focusing on these days in the cybersecurity area?
In the cybersecurity area, I think there are two major directions. The one is the technology, because right now we have to strengthen our technology in our companies. We have to make a lot of hardening it to be our system landscape more secure than before, because there is a lot of potential action against the systems. But the other column is the people itself. So in the major problem in cybersecurity, that we people don't follow the rules, we are not enough cautious, and we make mistakes because these guys are very tricky. And in the future it will be more tricky than nowadays. So somebody will call from a Dublin hotel and speaks like my boss, and I cannot make a difference between my real boss and this augmented boss, and I make mistakes, and I think that will be the major challenge ahead of us. So we will have to be very cautious in the future.
Yeah, it's amazing. I get these calls from people alleging to be from a bank, and there's been a security breach, and they're going to transfer me, and blah, blah, blah. And think about it, you get that call from Dublin, and it actually is your boss. And they're like, well, I'm not sure, that's going to cause problems too, perperhaps. So
maybe we will have a secret password or a checking question or two-factor authentication. We will see how we will be sure that this is really my
I'd like to each of you maybe provide one or two examples, either real or hypothetical, about digital transformations that you've worked on, or it could be a cybersecurity issue that you've worked on, to give our listeners and viewers just a little bit more of a sense in the real world how this all works. So Ágnes, if you want to go first.
I primarily work in the finance area. So honestly, I think finance is one of the easiest part of an organization that could be really transformed with the help of digital transformation. In the last maybe 10 or even more years, we have seen a lot of emerging technologies. I just give you an example, which is a very recent example that we also use for us and also for our clients, is that we developed a generative AI tool with the help of which basically we can process unstructured documents. And this is one thing that our clients use in their daily lives. Just imagine when you have 10,000 documents, let's say contracts, and you don't know the exact details of all of these. And if you have a tool with which you can transform it into a structured database, you can upload it into your system, immediately you have the kind of visibility and the amount of data that you can search for, use for certain business decisions. So it's a very powerful opportunity. And it's just one tool. We have myriads of tools out there.
And may I ask on that tool, because I know some of the large language models that are out there generally although they're very useful, one of the issues has been that you cannot upload client confidential data. It sounds like with the tool you're talking about, you can upload client confidential data without having to worry about.
Exactly. That was one of the questions, just back to the cyber topics, is that actually whole development process took a lot longer, actually, not just weeks, but several months longer, because we wanted to make sure that we can securely handle the data of our clients.
That's critical, Tamás, an example from you, either in the digital transformation or cyber or a mix?
May I use a different approach because the finance area or some sectors like the financial sectors or the telecom sector is more or less very advanced digitalized. I'm looking for that industries like agriculture, healthcare, and these kind of industries where there are far more room for improvements in digitalization, and sometimes the processes are very complicated and it's a real challenge, but can be a real benefit on that for digitalization. So this is the space where we are looking for new challenges, and we encourage our clients to find this way also.
I have to say in that regard, so I'm originally from the U.S. and then I moved to Hungary. And when I got my little TB card, and I went to the doctor, he prescribed some medicine, and he's like, oh, it's up in the cloud, the felhő. And my entire file has been digitized. That is way ahead of what's been going on in the U.S. And I totally understand the very important issues of confidentiality of health data. But this huge data pool of health data, to me, provides incredibly exciting opportunities in the field of AI machine learning, if you can take that out to develop new possible treatments and medical discoveries and healthcare service providers in that area. So really exciting. We're almost out of time, but I'd love to learn more, a little bit more at least, the time we have, about your guys' careers, how you got to where you are. I wish we could do a whole podcast on this, but if you could tell a little bit briefly about yourself so we can get to know each of you a little bit better.
I graduated from Corvinus in '99, so that's
good choice. Good choice.
25 years ago. At the time, it was Budapesti Közgazdaságtudományi Egyetem, or not Marx, but still not Corvinus. And when I graduated, I had no real idea what I wanted to do. So I joined KPMG as an auditor because, at that time it was a pretty obvious choice for people who had no real idea what they really wanted to focus on. And I worked as an auditor for 7 years. Then I went for secondment to the UK. And when I came back, I joined the advisory team. And in the last, I don't know how many years, I built several different service lines within KPMG, but all connected to each other. And that's been going on in the last, 15 years. And in the last 10, I would say, we very much started to focus on the digital agenda. And this is why our kind of co-leadership with Tamás is great, because we can combine, the kind of subject matter expertise with digital knowledge that we have within KPMG, and this is what is really needed for the clients.
And one of the things that's interesting about you describing your career at KPMG, it sounds like you've been provided with many different opportunities within KPMG to kind of grow and pursue your interests in different directions. So, Tamás, if you wouldn't mind.
Originally, I was graduated in the technical university, but during my...
we won't hold that against you here at Kórász.
But later on.
Okay, all right. You saw the light.
Later on, I decided that I need some knowledge, not just from the technology, the digitalization part, but from the business part. And then I started my 5 years journey at Corvinus, and I finished it later on. And nowadays, my elder daughter just finished the Corvinus.
Congratulations to her.
So it's a family habit.
When you next talk to her, ask her if she had this teacher named Theodore Boone and what she thought of him. And if she says good things, then you can tell me.
And my entire lifetime at KPMG, it is 28 years anyway. I try to find that kind of services, what is combined business and technology, because I like it most. So I was involved in SAP project, technological project, digital a journey project, banking project. So it was a really interesting story.
Thank you.
And here we are.
Thank you very much. We're super almost out of time now, but now we get to dig past and get to know the real Ágnes and the real Tamás with some questions that were sponsored by the French writer Marcel Proust.
All right.
And for each question, I asked for a 1 or 2 word answer. This is like the wash ink blot test. Whatever comes into your mind, I'm going to ask the question, ask each of you the answer, and we're going to go through it.
Okay.
Ágnes, which living person do you most admire?
My parents.
Tamás.
Bill Gates.
Ágnes, what is the trait you most deplore in others?
Flexibility.
Okay.
The
Tamás.
same.
Number 3, what is the quality you most like in a person?
If someone is approachable.
If somebody like challenges and the non-structured challenges.
Okay, I'm going to flip these around. I'm going to ask Tamás you the next one so you don't get to think about as much. Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Over you. Challenge.
Which talent that you do not have would you most like to have?
Salesperson. A good salesperson.
Some kind of theater links skills.
Theater skills. You're showing them today. It's perfect. What do you consider your greatest achievement? Other than going to Corvinus, that's clearly your greatest, okay, but other than that.
Maybe balancing my personal life and work life.
Nice. Yes, Tamás. If you were to die and come back as a person or a thing, what would it be?
Flower.
Nice.
Cat.
A cat. Well, we are out of time. I know everybody at Corvinus so much appreciates your taking the time today, Ágnes. Again, Ágnes is a partner and advisory co-leader at KPMG, and Tamás is a partner and advisory co-leader at KPMG. Ágnes Rakó, Tamás Kórász. Definitely thank you both for your time here today. And I hope we can continue this conversation in the future date. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Bye-bye.